So going from the classification of life and the tree of life to actually classification of living organisms, there are 5 kingdoms. You remember these divisions that we will go through. We'll just run through them because we are not really going to use them so much, but nonetheless for historic purposes we know that there are 5 kingdoms: Monera, Protoctista, Fungi, Plantae and Animalia. So we went from bacteria, archaea and eukarya into living organisms now. And the 5 kingdoms of organisms, I won't go into these details, but they are either simplest organisms, single-celled, which include things like cyanobacteria, which are photosynthetic; heterotrophic bacteria, bacteria that eat other things for energy; and archaea. Protoctistas are single or multi-celled with nucleus, and they include algae and protozoa. Fungi like mold and lichen mostly all are on land. Ocean has very little of it. Plantae, multicelled photosynthetic plants, a lot of them on land, but also many of them in the ocean, as we saw in coastal ocean, things like mangrove forests. We will also talk a little bit about kelps and seaweeds and so on. Okay, so surf grass, eelgrass, mangrove, marsh grasses, these are in the water. Animalia are obviously the multicelled animals that go from simple sponges that we talked about as a genetic origin of our species to complex vertebrates. So Carolus Linnaeus, who this is his simplified name, Latin name, he has a more complex name, in 1758 developed the basis of the modern classification of organisms. This is pre-genetic information, so you have to remember that. Okay, so taxonomy was systematic classification of organisms based on physical characteristics at the time, and now we add genetic information. So here we have kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, genus and species. Species is generally defined as organisms that can breed with each other or potentially can breed with each other. But again, to remind ourselves about biology, you can, I think, combine a male horse and a female donkey or the other way and produce a mule, which is a mule, a mule which is actually not fertile. It cannot reproduce. So strange things can happen. Nonetheless, if you take something like a dolphin, it's in the genus Delphinus, species Delphi, so it's a common dolphin. In the family Delphinidae, order Cetacea, Mammalia, Chordata and Animalia. So we'll look at a table to see how many common things we have. We are Animalia, but how many common things we have in this classification system with the other species. So here it is the taxonomic classification example. Here we have the categories: kingdom, phylum, and you also have subphylum, class, order, family, genus and species. Look at humans: common dolphin, killer whale, bat star, which is like a starfish or a sea star, and giant kelp, which is a plant that grows in the ocean, coastal waters, okay, or shallow waters. So humans, we are all common in the kingdom with the dolphin and killer whale and bat star, but giant kelp is a Protoctista, and we are all in the phylum until killer whale, and then bat star is a Echinodermata and giant kelp is a Phaeophyta. In terms of phylum, there are subphylum, we are vertebrates, and bat star and giant kelp are not vertebrates, so they don't have a spine, right? Class, bat star is obviously not a mammal. Humans, dolphins, killer whale are all Mammalia, and so on, right? We differ in the family from everybody else. We are Hominidae, they are Delphinidae, and Oreostraidae, and so on and so forth. I want to even be able to say them. Why is this necessary to have this classification? Essentially, you end up with just 2 words to describe each species, like the dolphin will be Delphis orca, or so on, right? Because sometimes you end up having names that can be misleading, common names, like there is a dolphin fish which is eaten, but obviously we are not going to eat dolphins, right? It's not legal to eat dolphins. So people can use names locally that are common with something else somewhere else, but scientific classification makes sure that when you mention something, then everybody is referring to the same thing. Like Vibrio cholerae is a bacterium that causes cholera, and it has related species like Vibrio vulnificus, Vibrio parahemolyticus, and so on and so forth. Okay, so these names are very useful when we want to make sure that we are all talking about the same thing and not using some common words that sound like something else, like dolphin fish, which has nothing to do with the dolphins. Okay, very good.